Okay, well, we are on 1 o'clock, so I'm going to start us off, but I have disabled the waiting room, so as and when other people arrive, they can come straight in and join. So welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Abby and I work with Barry Cranford, who's the founder of the CTOs group. I have the privilege of hosting today's event. For those of you who may not know, the CTOs is just one of the communities that is run by RecWorks. We are a tech recruitment company with a massive difference. We believe that recruitment can be a force for good in the industry beyond just placing people in jobs. And because of this, we have a particular focus on learning, mentoring, and personal development. From our perspective, if people want to learn and others want to teach or share knowledge, then we are happy to connect you through our variety of communities and events. We see this as giving back to those we've worked with in the past, but also paying it forward to those we hope to work with in the future. We have run over 700 events so far for engineers, developers, students, graduates, CTOs. We have run conferences, lightning talks, hackathons, all sorts. At the start of this year, we made our 4,000th introduction through our Meet a Mentor program, which we're really excited about as well. As I've already said, we love to give opportunities for people to connect. And this event is part of that. Excuse me. If you would like to know more about any of our communities, please do let myself or Helen or Barry know. Not Helen Scott. I would like to say Helen Lewis, if you know her. Please do let one of us know and we will happily take it from there. The recording for today will be available on our YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and search for RecWorks, usually it's there within a couple of weeks of the event. But if you're not already connected with me on LinkedIn and you want to find me, feel free to do that. And then I can send you the recording that way as well. I'll put my profile in the chat so that you can see that. With no further ado, I'm going to hand over to Sehaam, who is here to speak to us. And I'm really excited to hear what she's got to say. I'm sure you guys are as well. So over to you.
Thank you, Abby. Hi, everyone. I would love to, first of all, thanks for taking an hour out of your day today to come along. And hopefully what you take away from today are some things that you can actually put into practice, play around with, experiment with, and so on. That's the plan. I do want to keep this very conversational. And to that point, it helps me a lot if you wouldn't mind just dropping a hello in the chat. And if you could share with me your biggest either productivity or accountability challenge or something that you find that is kind of top of mind for you, I would love to hear you. And it also helps me tailor the presentation today to you, the things that I want to share to you. I can put more emphasis on the things that you're dealing with. So go ahead, drop those in there in the chat. Excellent, love it. Hi. Okay, that's nice. That's a great way for us to kick off. So yeah, have a think about what it is. I am going to present you with some challenges as a sort of way of getting you thinking and maybe naming exactly what it is that maybe you find a little challenging when it comes to either productivity or accountability. But let me do this. I'm going to jump straight into the presentation. Do keep dropping hellos and so on in the chat. I'm going to share my screen. And I'll go at quite a pace, but feel free to jump in, ask a question. I'm trying to keep track of faces and the chat, but do interrupt me if you've asked a question and I haven't answered it or I've missed it. That's definitely likely to happen today. So here we are. Just a little bit about myself for some context. I'm an executive coach. I'm the founder of Better Conversations. I've been a coach now for 9, 10 years. I've lost count. And most of the people that I partner with are senior leaders. They tend to be founders, C-suite, or the next level down, or the level below that. And so I work with them in a couple of ways. I either partner with them as an executive coach, or I train them to become leaders who coach, which is the name of the course. It's kind of exactly what it says on the tin. And what I'm going to be sharing with you today is some of the things that are in that course. And that's why I want it to be really sort of practical. I hope that every one of you takes something away from today, guys. I'm going to give that a try. So just an idea of, the companies that I've worked with. I am certified and registered with the International Coach Federation. And because of the course, we're also CPD certified, which is a really important. CPD is continuing professional development credits. This is the course, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And if you want to chat or got more questions about it beyond here, really happy to answer those questions, but don't want to. This is not an info session about the course. To give you confidence about where this is coming from, this is material that I've developed over the years, and what I've done is, let me and the feedback from the leaders who've been through the course is what I'm sharing with you today, is the stuff that they said is fantastic and has worked for them, or has been the biggest challenge for them that they've had to try and overcome in some way. So I'm sharing this with you, the CPD certification and the ratings from leaders, to give you confidence about where this information is coming from. It's actively used by leaders who go through this. And the course itself, I teach 12 skills across 4 competencies. And it's made up of 100 video lectures, and then that's 2/3 of it, and the assignments and self-paced learning. And then the other third is the live cohort calls. We have 18 hours total of that. And yes, people love the course, but they really love the peer interaction and learning from each other, because what their peers think is really important to them. If you want to know more, there's a long list, a ton of resources. If you follow Leaders Who Coach today, you'll get there. So let me take you through this, because I want you to understand the context of what I'm going to share with you today, so that you can see the sort of framework that it sits within. For that. So 4 competencies: grounded leadership, emotional connections, conversation skills, capability and capacity of teams. This is based on what coaches like myself are trained in. And then I've overlaid on that the reality of leaders like you and the challenges that you have day to day. And I bring to bear my own experience of building a company and running teams, inheriting teams, and so on, having worked in the tech industry. I'm not going to go through this, but you can see the skills that we're working on here all the way through. The first 3 competencies are really about amplifying and ratcheting up what you're capable of doing and your confidence in conversations. And then the last bit is bringing it all to bear. How do you grow your people, and so on? The things that I want to share with you today are these 2 concepts. I want to talk you through managers versus leaders who coach, because I think it's important to understand those distinctions. And then I'm going to share with you the Who energy model that I designed for this, because I think these are things we kind of skirt around and don't really talk about very often. So I really want to kind of put that front and center, what's going on for people on a good day and a bad day. Right. So I'm just checking the chat. I can't see anyone with any challenges, but lots of lovely hellos. So thank you for that. I'm going to share with you some challenges. I'm going to run through these really quickly, and then I'm going to come back to you because I want to understand which of these things are top of mind for you, because that's going to shape what I share with you. So this is you know, hopefully gives words and sort of defines things succinctly for you. One of the big challenges I see, whether I'm coaching or whether I'm training leaders, is this assumption. We all do it. We think we have a conversation with our direct report, and we think they get it. We think they, you know, we're on the same page. They go away. They start doing stuff, but then the evidence that comes later that says actually they didn't understand either the priority of it or what, you know, what the task entailed, is when we get the work back or not. That's the other thing, because it, you know, people can very often, you know, say yes, 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 because they feel uncertain in themselves and they don't want to say they don't understand, or they haven't actually visualized it sufficiently in their mind to know what the next step is. And so there's either a delay or it just doesn't happen. And we find out later when we're expecting it and it just doesn't come forward. The other challenge as leaders is sometimes when we've owned something for quite some time, or we've built something from scratch, whether you are the architect of a system, whether you have designed a process within your organization when you set up the company, really hard to let go. We have this sense that we're custodians of it. We want to manage the integrity of this thing that we've built. And so handing it over can feel a little scary, and partly because we're so emotionally attached to it. And the other reason that I see a great deal is that we don't have the conversation skills to do that handover sufficiently well, that we get peace of mind and the other person gets ownership sufficiently that they run with it, that they're really committed and can put their passion into it. So, and whether that's letting go or delegating, the same sorts of things come along. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about the importance of different stages of a conversation. There's creative alignment, and then there's contracting. Avoiding tough conversations. Many of us hope that it will resolve itself. If I leave it alone, it'll figure itself out, or I'll get too busy and, you know, it'll be in the distant past. The trouble with that is that we miss opportunities to course correct, to really find out how we can help someone recommit and re-engage with the work that they're doing. So as a result, we can very often let underperformance drag on. It has got to sit somewhere in the top 3 challenges for leaders, where underperformance drags on to such an extent actually it becomes really painful when they really have to deal with it. It impacts the team, it creates risk in the project. It just is you know, is a negative, toxic thing that we can often just, you know, for our own avoidance, and I'm going to get into that, lots of reasons why we don't kind of get in there, name it, deal with it as soon as we see it. And it's the unspoken stuff and the things that we think, you know, they've understood and haven't understood, and are we aligned, and so on. Making it personal versus not making it personal. Okay. Making it personal is in a negative sense, in that if I disagree with you, it becomes about our relationship, the dynamics between us. And not making it personal is about have we created enough emotional connection for this individual, emotional attachment to the idea, to the outcome, and so on, to drive their own momentum, to create that accountability. So those are things that we often sit in the space of really kind of being uncomfortable with. One of the things that leaders who coach learn to do is really get in there and don't gloss over the emotions, because that's likely the biggest blocker here. But if we don't know how to talk about and probe around feelings, then we're only going to have a limited impact in our conversations. Telling people what to do and jumping to solutions, the hardest skill that leaders who coach learn to do, or avoid doing, I should say. It comes from a good place. It's a kind of, I've done this before, let me show you, let me tell you what you need to do. It actually has a disempowering effect, and it kind of leads to that no one takes initiative. People don't come up with ideas and so on. It's because we have jumped in too quickly, and we haven't made the conversation inviting enough and helped them come up with a solution themselves, even when we know what the next step is likely the best next step. We take away that sense of control of the situation, and we miss a few heartbeats there in actually creating an emotional attachment. Zach, I'm just going to jump in there. You caught my eye there. My biggest challenge is incorrectly believing I've built a shared understanding leading to failure and delegation. Exactly that. And that's what I want to kind of get into and share with you today. Thank you for sharing that. Not knowing what your people are capable of. You know, those growth monthly one-to-one meetings that we should be having, or keep sort of cancelling because other things are getting in the way. They are really long-term strategically are detrimental to the relationship, because I can tell you there's an exercise that I get leaders to do, which is their own growth roadmap. And they start to do it with their direct reports. And every time they come back and go, I did not know that about somebody in my team. I didn't know they were interested in those things. And so there's a lot that we miss. And if we don't have different ways of tapping into that, we miss the opportunity to kind of link their passions with what the opportunities are. And then the other thing here, and I'm going to touch on this a little bit later again, which is not contracting or negotiating in conversations. Even the simplest of conversations is a negotiation. What do you need done? By when? Can you get it done for me by this time? That's a negotiation. If I need something done by a certain time, or you need something from me, it's a negotiation. And are we contracting in the conversation? Very often we don't. We kind of go, yeah, you're going to do that, I'm going to do that, fab, come back. What did we actually agree? What did you need? Could we both see in our mind's eye what the next steps were? Did we feel like we understood what might stop us from getting there? What resources do we need? Did we make any asks or requests of other people? Again, another really difficult thing for people to do is ask for help. So I just want to pause there. I would love to hear from everyone here today. Which of these, Zach, you shared a perspective there of what your challenges are. I'd love to hear which of these things resonates for you. Which of these kind of is a standout thing generally or at the moment? Feel free to unmute or jump in. I'm all ears. Brian.
Yeah, I'd say letting underperformance drag on is one of the biggest challenges. Confronting people about underperformance, basically. Right.
And what's particularly hard about that for you?
It is really just pinning it down while maintaining a visible display of even-handedness and fairness. So you know you know straight away what's going on, but it's a question of challenging it in a way which is fair and is seen to be fair.
Right. And that comes down to, do I, hand on heart, know that I did everything I could to help them? Did I make it explicit? Did they make things explicit to me? So a lot of those things, there's a lot of ambiguity that can sit in that space, right? Of kind of thinking, maybe I misled them. Maybe I said something that sent them down a wrong path. And also concern for their feelings. You saying that fairness speaks to a value of yours, and them being able to feel like they have a voice in that conversation, or that you're acting fairly, and that you're honoring your own integrity on it. That's another big reason why we don't get into these conversations. I don't want to upset you. I don't want you to think you've done a rubbish job. But we don't know how to kind of get into that conversation. We worry about, once I start it, then what do I say? So thank you, Brian. Kia, 8, not contracting and negotiating in conversations. Very familiar in the Zoom-based world. Yes. Are you able to, would you like to say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. I think, this is, I think Zoom conversations, when there's more than 2 or 3 people, it's quite hard to keep track of everyone, for everyone to say what they need to say to get their opinions out there, etc. And I think everyone can come away with a different idea of what was agreed and who was going to do what, unless you're very focused and very clear. An agenda in advance is always a good idea. Follow-up meeting notes. If you don't do that, I just find that everyone just goes away assuming that someone else is going to do it all for them.
Absolutely, yeah, and really important to, not just to the project and managing risk there, but to the individuals and their growth, in terms of, this is how we do stuff, right? This is how we own stuff, and yes, mistakes will happen, and so how comfortable are people in that space itself? Thank you. Let's have a look. Andrew, I think another challenge is leaders not building their people in their image, need to max unique potential. Could you say a little bit more, Andrew, on that?
Hi, Sehaam.
Hi.
Yes, hi there. I think they're great, by the way, those 8. I think it maybe comes into perhaps to not letting go, difficulty delegating. I think sometimes I've seen leaders who want people to follow their behavioural approach and their own perhaps agendas, and I think good leaders will recognise the importance of allowing an individual to blossom and to grow to their own potential, and sometimes that can stifle creativity, can stifle value. So yeah, I think helping leaders to see beyond their own agenda, I think is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, because as the direct report to that leader, if there's no space for me to honor my values, why would I bother? Why would I put myself in that situation? And we don't want that. We don't want that kind of disengagement, right? Thank you, Andrew. Dave, 3, avoiding tough conversations, especially cultural behavioural issues. Can I invite you, Dave, to share a little bit more there?
Hi, yeah, sure. I'd love to. But something I've experienced last year and this year as I've been growing the company. Something I've had to come to terms with is it's not about performance, but about behaviour, and having straightforward conversations with people about their behaviour and how they're speaking, interacting, and what they're doing to other folks, and having a direct conversation with people about what the consequences of doing that will be, and the impact it's having on people. I'll be honest, I find them very difficult conversations, but I've had really good conversations when I've realized now that they had to be had for the good of the person and the company. I don't look forward to them still, but I'm proud of myself for having them, because they're very easy to avoid. But I've realized the impact on other folks is quite severe if you don't deal with behavioral issues and have those tough conversations about behavioral issues.
Right. They can be really rich, and this is the thing that that is quite a shift for leaders that I work with, is they do come to that point and they go, actually, it's not as tough a conversation as I thought if I can approach it in a certain way, and I'm grounded in myself and how I want to show up, and why this is important to have this conversation and to pick it up earlier before it becomes this bigger thing. But I'm hearing your commitment there, Dave, to step into a space of, you know, it's not comfortable, but you recognize the importance of it. So thank you for sharing that. And then Ian, making it personal versus not making it personal. Have a sincere conversation based on trust and trying to be constructive in feedback, but it gets internalized too deep. Can you share a little bit more, Ian, on that?
Yeah, I think it's about, you know, treating people with respect, treating as an individual, treating people as you want to be treated, and you try and be authentic and open and transparent. It kind of backfires on you a little bit. They oversensitize it and they take it in too deeply, and you almost find yourself justifying your opinion or your point of view. And try to find a common ground. So look, you know, I understand why you've done that, but see it from my point of view, the impact on other folks, like the guy that Dave just said. And often kind of good intentions kind of get lost, maybe through a bit of informality or perhaps maybe a lack of structure. Right.
Yeah, and look, that's again just really common, and it kind of speaks into the number 6 really, and I'm going to share more about that in a minute, which is we need to create a space for them to talk first, because if you think about even ourselves, we're more likely to listen to somebody else when we've been given space to speak first. And so and actually it's the smart thing to do to let someone speak first, because if we start to think about it as gathering data or evidence, or, you know, deepening our understanding about how they're viewing things, we're in a much better position to be able to course correct or challenge in a compassionate way, and that's a skill that we get into on the course. Is, you know, you can challenge, but it's the way that you do it that will determine whether it's a good outcome or, you know, they want to have that conversation. Can I get out of the room really quick? Cool. Well, thanks for that. Really helpful to kind of just gauge and do ask me any other questions as we go through here. So to touch on the things that you shared with me, the common tensions of these, very often leaders are saying, I want to give them autonomy, but then when I get what I get back isn't to the standard that I needed it to be. And so I have to take it over and fix it because we've run out of time and we're under pressure. So, you know, it's as leaders, we oscillate from one to the other. We want people to be autonomous. We don't want to be micromanagers. We've learned that that's not a good way to be. So we go for the autonomy, but we don't do enough of the contracting and the creative alignment prior to get the outcome that we need. And so the quality of what's delivered is compromised. The other thing that I hear leaders saying a great deal is, I'm not sure my people are that committed, or I don't think this person is really that passionate about being here. And I question that, and I challenge leaders around that, because my work doing culture work or one-to-one coaching and so on tells me that people want to be involved, they want to add value, but something's happened that's either getting in the way or that's meant they've checked out. And often it's around not being valued or not being able to have an opportunity to contribute in a way that honors their values. So that's something to kind of bear in mind. And so leaders often in this space of, you know, firefighting, dealing with escalations, when actually what I hear them say is, I don't have enough time, I need to be more strategic, but I have to get involved. I keep getting pulled into various meetings, and I just don't have time to think. So I don't have confidence in the decisions that I'm making as being as rock solid as they could be. So just want to, do those tensions ring true for you? If you can give me either a show of hands or a yes in the chat. Are those things, aspects that you felt, tensions that you felt? Okay, yeah. Yeah. There's always a deadline, right? There is always a deadline. So, you know, and there are lots of other things, I'm sure. For you, there may be other tensions in here, things that you kind of, you know, stopping you from enjoying, really enjoying the role that you're in. So how we create ownership and manage risk is the key to unlocking productivity and creating accountability. So how we do it, your knowledge is not in question. Your understanding, the appropriate next steps and so on, these are not into question. What we need to work on as leaders is how we're showing up. And so that's what I kind of want to give you some tips around today, is the fact that it really sits in our ability to create emotional connections for people, to us as leaders, to the task, to the team, to the project, to the customer, to all the different stakeholders. How do we do that? So let me share something else with you. I'm going to track time here. I'm just going to run through these. And I want you to think about which of these you focus on the most. Maybe pick 3. And if you feel like sharing it, drop it in the chat. But equally, just in your mind, think about this list, and which ones do you invest the most time doing? I'm going to give you a few seconds to kind of work through that list. Write it down for yourself. Thank you, Ian. Oh. So 3 things. Where do you spend most of your time, invest your energy? Okay. So these are the distinctions that I want to share with you between managers and leaders. This is one of the slides at one of the video lectures that's in the course. It's a really important aspect because this sets the scene for how we progress, how leaders sort of continue through the course, how they see themselves. So managers, most of us get promoted into roles because we're subject matter experts. It's rare that we have trained to be people managers, that we've trained to come from that place first. We're generally technical experts first. And where do we get the opportunity really to upskill around our conversations, when in fact so much of what we do sits in this space of encouraging and getting people to do extraordinary things, build amazing stuff. And so it's really important just to reflect on that. You know, where is it that you're spending most of where do you actually spend your energy? We know where we probably should be, but where are you actually spending your time? And so have a think about that. It might be worthwhile taking a screen grab of this if you wish, just so that you can look back on it and reflect, yeah, I actually, I may, inspiring and unlocking performance is something that's really top of mind for me. And I wish I could do more of that. But if I'm honest with myself, I probably do a lot more of the stuff that sits in the left-hand column day to day. So think about the percentage of your time. Where are you spending your time? I'd love to get just some feedback from you guys about that. Is it useful to see things in that way? What's coming up for you in looking at the two lists? Anything in the chat?
I do spend a lot of time on people and relationships, I find now.
Yeah.
I try not to spend time on process and tasks, and I find most of my time is more than direction and strategy is spent on people and relationships. So perhaps that's just the nature of my business and where it's at.
Right. Oh, that's great to hear. And it is, I mean, we can be caught because tactically there's a lot that needs doing, right? And that has its own momentum. It's much easier to sit in that column because it's stuff that needs doing. Takes a more intention and energy to sit in the right-hand column. Brian seems to be more in the right-hand column. The stuff in the left is drain on time, right? Right. Yes. Yeah. You've got to be in both spaces. Any other perspectives on that?
Yeah. Hi. I've not said anything during this call yet. It's unusual for me. It's interesting. On one of your previous slides, when you were asking on the leadership side,
yes,
what are the problems in performance or sort of underperformance management side? That at the time I thought, hold on, that feels more like management than leadership. And I think in my head I've seen them as two very distinct things, to the point where very recently I've created a kind of new role where somebody is now doing these left-hand things so that I can do these right-hand things. But do you see, I suppose, management and leadership being part of the same thing? Or is it kind of contextual? So up to a certain point, specifically from a CTO's perspective, I think maybe CTOs do all these columns up to a point where your operational burden becomes so great that you go and create a VPE role or something similar. But
right. It's a good question. It is both, but as a leader, you if you've got the resources and so on to bring and grow your team, and they can do more, the capability of what they can do increases, then you should be definitely sitting more in the right-hand column. That's where you kind of want to get to, because it's your leadership that's going to unlock people's passion, their interests, their sense of, I want to commit to this, I'm going to give generously to conversations, I want to troubleshoot. So it's our ability to be here and work through other people that is distinct. Your knowledge is key. People need that, right? People will look to you and with admiration for what you understand, what you can do, your experience, and so on, and that matters. But the point is, it's handing on the baton, right? It's passing it on, and so there are things that we need to do less and less of. But what I find is a lot of leaders kind of sit in this space of they're still doing too much and they're not strategizing enough. And they feel it because they feel like they're not putting into the business, or they're not growing things in the way that they would like because they're stuck in this space. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Chris?
Yes. It's fascinating.
It is very. Okay. Thank you for that. Dan, I try to work on the right, but get frustrated with much of the tactical behaviors that are taking time to unpick. Yeah. Maybe frustration, wrong word. Frustration sits there too. It's hard with frustration, it's all there. Okay. Time is marching on. I'm going to move really fast. There's the Who energy model that I wanted to share with you. Just a quick video here. Let me get that running while I talk to that. I might just skip it, just move it forward a little bit here. So the Who energy model is basically thinking about, we can have great days when we're feeling very optimistic. So that's Who positive. We're honoring our values, we believe in ourselves, we feel confident, emotionally committed, not commitment. Clarity of thought and action, can do anything. When we're having a really crap day, everything doesn't look good. We really struggle with who we are. Can we do this? Are we in the right place? And so as leaders who coach, we have to be aware and cognizant of the whole of the person, sometimes good days, sometimes bad days. So what's our role in this? If this is our direct report. Our role really is about keeping them in that space of feeling energized, feeling empowered, that they've got freedom and choice. And when they are feeling demotivated, understanding what's causing them to feel stuck and blocked. And so we can think about it as these two kind of spaces that we're operating in between here and there. We need to move them from here to there in order to do their best work within the team, for themselves. And so it's an energy, if you think about it as a transacted energy. So here's Jamie having started the week and slowly getting really frustrated and getting demotivated and feeling a bit, this is not going the way I wanted. I don't really want to be here. I don't know how to move. I've got this conversation I need to have, but I'm really not looking forward to having that conversation. So all of these things, Jamie's personal values are called into question. We doubt ourselves. We've got conflicting thoughts, and then we get angry with ourselves. Why am I feeling this way? It's a great opportunity. I should be grateful, blah, blah, blah. So much of that is going on in our head. If we think about ourselves when we're having a bad day, we can be all of those things at once. As leaders, we're trying to create the space in conversations to remind Jamie of actually what's important to them, why they're here, what's the contribution they want to make, how do they want to feel, and what will they need to get there. And that is all of that. I haven't told Jamie what to do yet. I haven't said anything about, Jamie, you should, go and talk to so-and-so, or have you spoken to blah, and have you done this? I haven't done any of that. I spent that time understanding what's going on for Jamie to get them so that they can see, because ultimately, if we've hired the right person into the role, they're the person that are best placed to do the job. And so our job is to empower them and help them do what they're good at. Let me move on from there. What I want to share with you is an infographic, and I'm going to share with you at the end how you can access this infographic. There are some additional videos that go with it as well, so that talk you through some questions that have come up when I've sort of put this out there to leaders. Well, is it really the case that we have to do it this way? Does it really run in this fashion? So there's a couple of videos in there that you'll get once you download this. So let me take you through this. I mentioned earlier this idea about creative alignment. Conversations, when they start with this sort of creative alignment rather than jumping straight into solution mode, you get much stronger results. So creative alignment is about getting everything on the table, but it's holding back from us giving our perspective, telling them what to do, and really allowing them to think through. Because the one thing I can say time and time again, when you ask someone what they think about something or why that was difficult for them, it may be the very first time they've articulated it. It may be the very first time it's come out of their mouth, and they've heard themselves say it. And so what initially is shared maybe a little bit confused or mixed up. And so we need to be patient and allow them to kind of have a few goes at sharing that. So here's what I'm going to talk you through this really quickly. Any questions, you can message me, email me, and so on afterwards. But so we'd kick off a conversation by saying, here's the situation, and this is the complication about it. And I would keep that as fact-based as possible. And avoid putting in our opinions or our own frustration or annoyances. All of those, park them for now. There'll be an opportunity for that later on, not to kick off though. And then you give them, right, what's your take on that? And we might do a couple of loops of this, as I said, because the first time we actually articulate it may not be fully coherent, may not be joined up. But it's an expression of emotions or frustration or difficulty. And those are never comfortable or straightforward feelings and thoughts, right? So the purpose of letting them talk is to understand their why. So I've got an opinion about this and I'm really annoyed at you, but I'm going to hold it. And can you just say more about that? In the same way that I invited you to post something in the chat and then asked you to kind of expand on it. That's exactly what you want to do. You want to give people that opportunity to put more words on it. Come up, go through another round of describing what was going on there. Help me understand what happened there. I'm holding back from any judgment, frustration. I think what you did was kind of, couldn't you see that was obviously the wrong thing to do? I'm going to hold back on all of those feelings, and I'm just going to listen and be present and hear and try and understand how you were processing things in your own mind. The other thing is that we learn to trust that if we've hired this amazing person, they know when something's gone wrong. They know what could have been a better way to handle something. We all have a big sort of pot of understanding in theory how things should work, but in practice we're triggered in lots of different ways. So it's about making it okay to kind of surface those things. Number 5 here, acknowledge them, thank you for explaining that to me. I do not have to agree with what you've said. I want that to be clear here. This is not about you kowtowing or saying, yes, you're right, and so on. It's not about avoiding honesty. It's simply acknowledging them and going, thank you. That's helping me understand, what may have happened here. And it really is not, you don't have to agree. But we don't need to throw out there, we don't need to throw in a hand grenade and say, well, that was really a daft way of doing it. Why would you pick that way? I thought we talked about it being in this way. I'm being a little bit bullshit here, but just you get my drift. Sorry there, just want to go back. Let me see if I can do that. So it's at this point, they've had an opportunity to share and give their perspective of what they thought happened. Now it's my turn, but I'm not going to launch straight in there with, well, you know what? This is my position on it. We want to get a psychological acknowledgement that they're ready to listen to our perspective. And so there's nothing funny about basically saying, would you like to hear my perspective on that? It basically marks a point in the conversation that says, I've listened to you. It's been really helpful for me to understand. I have a different perspective on that. Are you ready to hear it? So this exchange goes on. So everything, you might go back and forth. There might be a few cycles of it. I'm going to, in the interest of time, keep going. Now we're getting into the place of contracting in the conversation. So what do we need to do differently to achieve that goal that we're agreed now is the right goal that we should be going for? Give them a chance to explore it and share it. you are privy to information that they may not have. You've got a horizon and a landscape and are aware of stakeholders, and you're in conversations they're not in. And so now is the chance for you to kind of give them that extra bit of information that allows them to course correct, or allows you to step in and course correct. And basically says, we need to bear in mind that the customer has previously expressed this as being a problem. So we really don't want to avoid throwing that, bringing that into the mix again. So how can we mitigate against that risk? Then we continue to align and what that looks like, what needs to happen, get into the specifics. Ask the question, what might stop you from doing that? Let's look at all the possible ways that the wheels of this thing could fall off. And how can I help you with that? What do you need to think about? Who do you need to ask for help? What requests do we need to make? Whose buy-in do we need to get this moving forward and get it signed off? And then actually, appreciating the dynamic of that conversation and thanking them for being so open and sharing what was in their head, because you got a better outcome. In terms of this infographic, this is where you can get hold of it. Like I said, it's to PDF. I really encourage people to have it on their phones and use them to prepare for those difficult conversations. Use it to prepare for going into a meeting with someone, and just remind yourself of maybe one or two questions or phrases that help you hold back from jumping in and doing the solutioning that inadvertently shuts people down. And I'm kind of going to wrap it up there. If you have any questions, or you want to follow up with me at all, here are my contact details. If you're interested in the cohort, I'm running a CXO cohorts are basically senior leaders, especially in tech and ops. The next cohort for this year kicks off on the 20th of April. So if what you've seen here has piqued your interest and you'd like to learn more, do reach out to me for that. But let me pause it there, folks. What are your thoughts? What came up for you? What feedback do you have for me?
I think that was absolutely fascinating, like Chris said earlier, especially where I'm not a CTO, but I do still have conversations with people. I need to interact with people, and we need to get things done sometimes, and how to do that. Yeah, thank you very much. That was really helpful.
My pleasure. Thank you, Abby. Brian, you wanted to say something?
I find with these types of sessions, the biggest value is just in, it's not the specific cognitive framework, but it's just laying it out on the table and walking people through it and stimulating thoughts, which you've done very well. So thank you.
Oh, good, good. I'm glad about that. Good, yeah. Thank you, Chris, for sharing the link there. It was very kind of you.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Sorry, you mentioned a couple of times, or assumed that we'd hired the right person. And I think as CTOs, we're pretty good at getting the technical assessments done. I think my company is getting better at trying to identify the softer skills. So when we talk to them, trying to challenge them, see whether we could work with them, see how they deal with, I don't think that's right. Is this something that we can also look at during the recruitment phase, or is that kind of the nature side? But actually these techniques will work on everybody if you do the nurture side correctly.
Look, the techniques that I share in the infographic about conversations, you can apply them to interviews. And if you know what you're looking for in terms of how somebody responds and what they say, then you're going to attract the people that you want on your team. So if we're looking for someone who can process and think something through, and is collaborative and is generous in how they think about it, and understands that a challenge doesn't mean we have to get defensive. And also, as the person interviewing, we're listening for things, we're listening for language that's used. There's a lot of throwaway remarks that we do. One of the exercises we do on the course is watching a 2 or 3 minute movie scene. And we have to watch for all the non-verbals, all the verbals, all the requests, the soft asks, the direct asks, and all of those things, because in leading a team, we need to be looking out for that. It's amazing how much body language we leak in a conversation, and how much we miss as well, and how much we could be picking up, even in an online setup. So, you know, I think, Chris, it comes down to asking the right questions, creating the right environment in an interview session, and seeing, you know, how people respond, but really watching for the language people use, how they say it, where they go with it, what they invite back, how they come back to you, and their body language as well.
Thanks.
Fascinating. It's actually, and when people do that movie exercise, they go, I'm never going to watch a movie the same way again. Because you realize, you know, they have to watch it sometimes 20 times. It's a 2-minute clip, 20 times to pick up all the different behaviors and so on. And of course, it's, you know, they're actors and they've probably done 100 takes to get the perfect thing, but it's valuable to listen from. Just want to jump in on the chat here. Hard to find a way to reward those who don't generate technical debt. Most efforts are judged on making X happen, but very little focus on the long-term cost of making X happy via Y. Yeah. Cool. You've got the link. Okay. Any other thoughts or questions? Maybe just a 30-second one, Abby. I'll just clock the time.
That's fine. Don't worry.
You've got my contact details. I'll drop them in now while I hand over to Abby to wrap up. And please do follow up with me if you've got any questions about anything I've said, or you get the infographic download and something's not clear, you want to chat about it. Always open for a conversation.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sehaam. Like I say, I found that absolutely fascinating. And from my perspective, there's a lot I can take away, even though I'm not in a management position in that sense. So thank you so much. Thank you all for attending today. I hope you have found it useful. I know I can see message after message in the chat saying you've all found it really interesting, really useful and helpful. And obviously, as Sehaam's already said, you can get in touch with her if you want to take the conversation further. That's absolutely fine. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I hope you have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you at our next event very soon. Take care.
Brilliant. Thank you, Abby.
Thanks.
Good.
Bye.